So, like I was saying out in the lobby, this map is extremely deceptive in how big it is. It is a 10K by 10K? Yes? Something like that?
I think so.
It's quite a bit of walking distance from one side to the other. So, the first time I ever played this one, I dropped in and started building like it was a teeny tiny map, and then realized that by the time my units had traveled to all of these different places, things were not working out. Let's just leave it at that. So, yeah, it takes a little bit of forethought. Also, it is an asymmetrical map, I just realized. This one is not mirrored.
You mean how for the bottom player, the right side expansion is closer than the top expansion?
No, like the entire map is not symmetrical. Look at
Oh,
how
yeah, the
all of the
hills
things
are
are
in
shaped.
different shapes. That's true.
Yeah, I'd not noticed that before. Huh.
Good point, actually.
Is this a stock map or one that's custom made?
I don't know. I do know that there's also a map called Desert Planet. Just Desert Planet or perhaps Desert Planet 1, and this has a similar look, but different gameplay.
Okay. Whiteheart going first land looks like second air, and then a lot of P-gens and a land factory. I think that's second air. Both players rushing for the hydro, and ZLO definitively going second air with hydro plus 3 P-gens. Did not even build an early power generator.
With
Petrick did.
with 3 core mixes, this makes sense. Like you can do it. Lots of viable openings on this map. I think with 3 core mixes, you could use TA for Life's inverted opening, which builds 2 mass extractors, then 3 power generators, and then the other mass extractor. And this allows you to get an assisted air factory up relatively fast and build up a production lead in fighters. So interesting openings are possible on this map.
Are all of those covered in your build order guides that you put out?
I don't have a video on TA4 Life's inverted opening yet because I'm still researching it and experimenting with it in different contexts. But I do have a map-specific tutorial, a ladder tutorial for this very map.
Okay, excellent. I was going to highly recommend anybody who's watching this check out Heaven's other videos, because he does much more technical videos than I do. So if you're looking for very specific answers or builds from someone of a bit higher skill cap, then Heaven is a good guy to check out for that. So yeah, links are in the description as always.
Thanks for the love.
Whiteheart actually went second land.
Oh yeah, he did. He may be doing this to... Okay, actually he's using it for raid, so let's not assume anything, but just watch. I could imagine you could use it to scale up your build power and just get more engineers to assist the air. But
does look like that one is building Mantis, so maybe he's just leaving. Yeah, the original factory is staying on engineers, and it's just attack moved right next to the air factory. Nope, that's a Mantis. So he is doing different things. It is a UEF versus Cybern matchup, which is one of the more level ones. I guess at the T1 phase, the only one that would be more perfectly matched would be Seraphim and UEF on a land map. But he does have a scout along with this Mantis, which should counter the typical mech marine that ZLO puts out very early very well. Although ZLO is doing a pretty dang good job of trying to dodge. Managed to get down to half health on the Mantis once again. 2 mech marines is probably going to be too much though. Yep. 1 Mantis versus 2 mech marines definitely loses.
A big concern that ZLO has a bit of tunnel vision right now, as he's got 4 idle engineers and the ACU island is core. These could and perhaps should be expanding, but it looks like ZLO is going for this mech marine cheese even against Petrich, and he's just going to see how it works out. Perhaps he assumes that the mech marines are overpowered in equilibrium, and that's why he's using them.
I mean, hey, people are willing to try new things. They're awesome. Gives us something different to watch, right?
Yeah, of course.
So we got 2.
ZLO is probably like the most non-standard player.
Yes. We've got 2 air factories down for ZLO, and he is working on 5 total land factories. Looks like Whiteheart on the other side, otherwise known as Petrick, is already up to 4 land factories, and he has 1 air factory down and is queuing for a second one, judging by the shape of his power build. So I don't know that ZLO is actually going to be able to wrench control away with those mech marines, because Petrick is pretty close to matching him on total production. But I guess if you need speed to outrun the Mantis, that's the only way to do it.
I like how Petrich is reacting to how ZLO only made mech marines by rallying all of his units into the top expansion, because he knows the bottom expansion is going to be safe thanks to the ACU and the Mantis that are already there. So ZLO is certainly delaying Petrich's expansion, but he is also delaying his own expansion in return.
I was about to say, he doesn't have any of his outside mechs, and Petrick has already claimed 3 core mechs on the right expansion, is moving for the next, and he's built 2 mechs on the other side as well. So Petrick is going to be way ahead in economy.
I believe this idle time on the ACU and the 3 engineers is going to be quite punishing for ZLO. While he was microing the mech marines, he could have used these to reclaim and perhaps gotten a mass extractor upgrade to compensate for the slow expansion.
I guess even 2K rated players have a limit to their APM.
That's true.
Or maybe their focus.
I guess he just decided that microing the mech marine was more important and ditched the base management for this moment. It's easy for us to criticize it since we aren't actually playing, and
yes, I would be doing much worse than this if I opened like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like tournament atmosphere makes one very nervous, I find, and you always perform a lot worse than your potential.
I've often thought that one of the most interesting matchups in FAF is ZLO versus Blackheart, because ZLO, like you were saying before, is probably the single most atypical high-level player. He just does random stuff, weird things that nobody else would even think of trying legitimately. And on the other side, you have Blackheart that is like the most calculated, most hours in sandbox, just absolutely precise player. And it's diametrically opposed game philosophies meeting on the highest level of Subcom.
I'm starving for this now, Brink.
I've watched a couple of their games, and it's quite intriguing. Their best out of 15 was pretty good. They need to do another set now that ZLO is back and playing. They need to get practiced up so they're both on top of their game, and we need to have this matchup.
Air control is certainly in the hands of ZLO, but Petrich has more land units on the field, I think.
I love this marauding band of mech marines that's running through the center of the map. Oh, that's not actually water. I always forget this.
Oh, this is
just
some sort of
flat.
Yeah, salt. Exactly.
Alright, so Petrick is re-expanding into his other base, and ZLO is currently 2.5k behind in score, which is pretty dang significant this early in the game. I'm going to jump over and take a look at Eco. ZLO at
mass difference between them.
Yeah. 19 per tick and 400 power with 2,500 reclaim, 3,500 for Petrick, and 37 mass income with 580 power. So Petrick is pretty much just stomping him in every regard economy-wise. I am getting the worst tongue ties here.
In my experience on this map, you want to be building units or like prioritizing unit production until you manage to hold your side of the map. Ideally, if you can pull it off, you want to deny an enemy expansion using raid. You don't necessarily need to have more units than your opponent, you just need to kill the engineers trying to expand, and the high travel time is going to make it very rewarding if you manage to take out enemy engineers. And then you can start ecoing as soon as you have 50% map control.
ZLO is about to get completely shut down. There's a large pack of Mantis moving in across into his base. It's going to take out most of the mechs in that expansion and several engineers. And then his ACU is also just now moving back up to build those 3 mexes. And this other group of Mantis is going to slip by on the right side. So Petrick has successfully penetrated the outside choke points, and life is going to be very difficult for ZLO trying to lock this down with this many units coming through.
Petrick is now in a position where he can eco and spam and keep making air, while ZLO has to decide between them, and he cannot cater for everything, and eventually he's going to fall behind either in unit count or in eco. So since he's low, he can still do something to get out of this, I'm sure of it. But
I was about to say, in that kind of situation where you have to choose one or the other, I would typically think that units were the better choice, because then you would at least have a fighting force and you could potentially get some reclaim later, as opposed to building up mass extractors in your base, ecoing, and then your opponent has a larger eco and the larger army, and then you don't get anything. So we'll have to see how this turns out.
Yes, I agree. But just making units and not ecoing also kind of gives away initiative. So your opponent is going to have to make a mistake, and if there's no mistake and the opponent just doesn't go for any like unreflected pushes, then you're going to lose in the long run. That's certainly better than losing right away because you're over-ecoing, but it's certainly not pleasant.
Interesting thing, there is now a pillar out. ZLO has got the first T2 unit in the game out. On the south side, a T2 engineer has just left a T2 factory for Whiteheart. So Petrick is probably going to be, yes, building T2 power, which I think would be indicative of a loyalist rush. The pillars are going to be a very useful unit because they're one of UEF's options in the cheap and spammy category. They're actually faster than their T1 counterparts, unlike some of the other T2 main tanks that the other factions have. They produce very quickly, they're cheap, and they fare reasonably well versus T1. So they're going to give ZLO an excellent option for dealing with all of these Mantis that keep running by. On the downside, he is continuing to lose T1 mass extractors in the back of his base.
Yeah, very cheeky drop there. Note how Petrick started ecoing. He's got 2 mass extractor upgrades, and I don't think ZLO is going to recover from this. Like, the pillars will have to get some... Will have to do some magic work, and he's going to have to reclaim everything as soon as it dies to get back into this one. But I think it's going to be very hard.
I think so too. It's pretty much doomed. The T2 mech upgrades, along with the second T2 power generator, like I said, everything down here is looking like loyalist push, and there is nothing that ZLO has that can stop that. He's still trying to clean up the units in his own base. So, cheeky bastard. Petrick actually built a mass extractor up in ZLO's expansion on the right side.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, if it's alive for 18 seconds, it pays for itself. So, or no, 9 seconds. Right? Hold on. I gotta check this again.
No, it's 18 seconds plus another around 14 for the reclaim, if the enemy gets the reclaim, strictly speaking.
Oh, okay. Went one step further than me. I knew 18 was in my head for a reason. Alright, so units in the back dealt with, but now there's an entire slew of units coming in through the north choke point. So it just continues to look darker and darker.
Choke point, Charlie.
ACU getting the T2 upgrade. And we've now got a T2 support factory pushing rhinos, which is a little bit of a weird choice. Honestly, I would have gone for another T2 mass extractor and then continued to push for T3. But I guess we'll let Petrick be Petrick since he's beating ZLO. Not going to try to tell him what to do. Pillar's trying to kite out these Mantis. I think they do have a slightly longer range, but it's not by much.
I think
they are faster, though.
I think the range advantage is actually quite significant, because I know that pillars kind of outrange Aurora, or have like basically the same range, and like I'm not sure if they no. In Equilibrium, they should outrange Aurora, I think. Outside Equilibrium, they may not outrange it, but it's unrealistic to think you can kite pillars with Aurora. It just kind of doesn't work. So.
All right, so pillars there.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that you can.
Yeah, it's 2 or 3 ticks that they outrange them by.
You can imagine that these pillars are just very tanky and slightly stronger Aurora, and then this Comet up there makes sense, and ZLO certainly has the range advantage. Very good scouts. Oh, these are ZLO scouts, never mind. I was hoping these were Petrich scouts. Because if Petrich realizes there's nothing up top, he can just take it out and ignore the pillars at the right.
Yes, there is a T1 transport over on the left side. Not sure exactly what's going on over there, but I do see there was just a move order placed. Yep. That is the T2 factories, I think, that are on that move order. So those are all going to be moving up to the top left as well. And there goes Petrick hitting that expansion.
And he decided he wants T2 transports. I think we're going to see some Rhino drops, perhaps also at the back of ZLO's base. He's also upgrading his ACU. I wonder if he's going for a con drop. He should have air control, but I wouldn't really understand why you'd risk that. Oh yeah, he made stealth, so we are going to see a con drop.
The ACU stealth, does that cloak the transport as well when you're in it, or only the ACU?
Only the ACU as far as I know. But maybe it's different.
Because you have to have the stealth field on the deceiver to be able to actually stealth the transport, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's going to be interesting to see. There's not much that ZLO really has to detect that transport should he fly in around like on the right-hand side. But it does look like ZLO has some extra interceptors.
ZLO knows now. He scouted Petrich. And this setup is kind of obvious. So I guess Petrich is loading in some tanks to pretend it's not actually a comm drop setup, but I think ZLO knows.
Typical Cybern, always trying to deceive.
Well, that's an Aeon thing also, in case my comm drop gets scouted.
That was a beautiful air engagement. Perfectly timed pullback. Very, very few losses for Whiteheart, and he absolutely decimated ZLO's forces on that one. Nothing left.
I think it would be interesting to find out how many games Whiteheart has played in a row, or whether he had breaks in between the matches, because I could imagine that ZLO is kind of tired from the game against Blindshake, which was sort of long, and he was losing it for quite a while. It didn't show in the last game, but it is perhaps showing now.
I had not thought of that, and that is very accurate. If Petrick did get through with his game a lot earlier, he could have come off of a 15 or 20-minute break.
This drop is going straight for the power generator.
Oh
I think
my goodness.
The Rhinos might be able to kill it.
Not going to kill it.
Yeah, he's focusing it immediately. Even the engineers are helping.
Yes.
That is beautiful.
Reclaim! Reclaim like your lives depend on it. Alright, where's this T3 factory that I keep expecting? It's not building. I was so sure that he was going to go for Loyalists with that build, but I guess it was for the ACU upgrades and not for the T3 land factory. Gunships are en route. Looks like Petrick is going to take strong advantage of his air win. This is something that I love to see in the higher rank games that you just miss out on the lowers, because a lot of times for people in the like 1000 rank range or so, they'll win air and then just sit on it. They keep building interceptors and just doing whatever they were doing before, and sometimes will go on to lose the game. Whereas Petrick won air and immediately changed to gunship production. And he is now going to use those gunships to try and control how the map is flowing and he's also using his T2 transports to move the units to the front line more quickly now that he is not fearful of losing anything. So it's just kind of a difference, more exploitation happening by the higher ranked players.
I think it's an important factor whether the air win is planned or it happens by chance, sort of. If the opponent engages into the air fight, it's easier to forget about the air win. But if you are the one who engages the air fight and the opponent has these interceptors idling on the ground, then of course this is something you actively intended and you'll of course make use of it. So I'm just saying, if you want to be a really good player, you have to make sure that you don't miss out on air wins, even if your opponent engaged them or they happen by chance, sort of.
Very true. Also notice that as soon as Low lost air, he immediately started building more mobile flak. And by the time those gunships got to the front, there was some mobile flak to engage. Now, of course, the gunships are way more mobile than the flak is, so they're just going to run around the north side and start harassing in other locations. But that's a very effective counter. Not so effective, losing all of your power generators to a group of rhinos in the back of your base, and basically losing all of your production.
I think what happened is ZLO realized that he lost air, and he wanted to punish his opponent for making so much air and not so much land. And he concentrated his pillar force at the bottom, now trying to take out the bottom expansion. But of course he didn't have any pillars left in his base when he did that.
Yes, now the rhinos are down, but ZLO is going to be knocked on his back pretty hard right there. That was a lot of power to lose. I'm actually curious as to what his eco is looking like right now. That would be 35 mass per tick, only 400 power income, and he's going to have to overflow mass to not power stall. Yeah, that's bad news. He's reclaiming his hydro, oddly enough. Wonder why that wasn't just straight rebuilt. Whiteheart, on the other hand, rocking 78 income and 1800 power. I think we can pretty decisively say that that is going to be a winning combination.
Yeah, the pillar push also failed because of the spread. So Petrich got this defeat and detail advantage from having the firepower concentrated in a small area, whereas ZLO's units couldn't shoot back. There was always 2 or 3 pillars against 6 rhinos.
Yes.
You can see how
T1
Petrich...
bombers. Say what?
You can see how Petrich is also very careful that he's not shooting hill. Whenever he realizes one of the rhinos is shooting hill, he moves them away.
Yes. T1 bombers are great at softening up land targets. Even though they might not seem like they're doing a significant amount of damage, when you're chipping off 300 HP at a time off of 2 or 3 T2 units, that can make a tremendous difference in how the next land engagement will go. If you have just a couple less tanks, but you've done that softening up with 2 or 3 bombers, you might still win it.